Okay, so we are daring the camera. Oh, my logo's right in the middle of the YouTube stream. Lesson learned. The YouTube embeds the logo in the bottom right hand corner. It's not actually on the other stream, so oh well. We're going to live with it as it is right now. I'm not messing around with the camera to start what is already a shorter stream. So I'm going to get started straight away. No one's in here yet, so the goal of today's stream is to get the maintenance components for the Sagas up and running. So, sorry, maintenance components. I mean I need to verify that the SQL Server, given the right credentials, will establish itself, will establish the table on startup. So I need to be able to test that piece. Now I haven't written the scripts or anything yet. I may have to do a migration. I don't want to do migrations because they are tracked, and I don't want to add further databases to, if someone was to use this and not put it in a specific its own database and just generally put it out there into their existing data structure. I don't want to create an integrations table or risk conflicting with someone else's integrations table. So I want to make it just insert the table, which I think is still possible. I think ensure created should do what I want it to do. I just need to make sure I got the right permissions for it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an integration test project, which is literally just a console app that will use Dapper to run an initialized script to prepare the database. This isn't possible because I have to give Dapper enough credentials. I suppose it is possible in that, but I have to give the user I run this as enough credentials to do everything I need it to do. Right, so that's kind of where I am right this second. So this may take 5 minutes, it may take an hour. I just got to learn a little bit more about those pieces. So, yes. Let's go to here. It says with confidence. Okay. So I have enabled dark mode on this browser. On this browser, I do not have dark mode enabled. So let's try and use this one first. How do I create a SQL Server user with permissions to create? How do I create a SQL Server user with a script? Permissions to create a database, drop a database, and establish a user. Okay, so create login, grant create, grant drop, grant create. Well, that's stunning, isn't it? So this piece is kind of supporting script, right? So up here, right, I need this user to be created, right? And then I need to create another login, right? So this user is not the user that I use to run the test with. This is the user that I run to so this user here is going to be the user I create, right? This user here is the user it's going to create and attached and then attached to the this is the order that's going to go into create user. So let me How do I create a user from a login against a database? I think I know how to do this. I just want to make sure. Create user from login, grant select. Right, okay. So this is going to be a tinkering of permission balances. Obviously, I don't want to give too many, but this is a dev system, right? This is meant for dev. This is not meant for production. In production, I could document that you have to give it a user that is permitted to do the things. If you're watching on YouTube, I apologize for my head popping out from behind my logo. I realized that I embedded the logo in the video automatically, even though it's in the bottom left-hand corner of the video overall. So I will have to remove that, but I can't do it midstream, and I'm not gonna bring the stream down just to change that. So we'll have one stream of me hiding out behind my own logo. Okay, so I need to do this piece, right? So create login. Saga admin user. Create user from. So let's be clear. Login. From login. Your strong password. What should this password be? The password should be mediatrice. And then I want to grant to this, No, I want to create on the user. To create the user off the login. The login is just the credentials. The user is the actual user with permissions. I don't do much SQL Server admin, so this is all, this is the sort of stuff that DevOps and whatnot and SQL DBAs would normally configure for you because they want to make sure the database is safe. So they want to give you the right level of access straight away. Okay, so go. Grant. So it gave me grant create database. It did not let me grant drop database. So I think I can do that. Grant create drop on database. My audio's weird. In what way? Why can't I hear that? Live scene. Oh, I know why. Chat mic. Does that correct it? Challenge of not actually testing the stream. So obviously I have a camera. I actually got a camera and got it set up because I was like, okay, I'm going to test the whole, person on screen again. But I got a Camlink 4K and I plugged that in
And because, you know, why not default to the last device plugged into the actual computer? So what it had done is it defaulted to the cam link. So if you could actually hear my voice, which I don't know if you could, it was probably being picked up by something else. Well, I'm glad you showed up. So back to using the microphone, it works fine. Yeah, it's scarily sharp. I do have to put the key light on, otherwise the quality looks really grainy. But with the key light on, I'm kind of I was in two minds. I'm like, you just bought a camera, you set it up, you've put the key light on, you've tested it, it looks really sharp, but you're going to do it. You're going to stream first thing in the morning after you've got up. So if I look disheveled and I look tired, it's because I have been up for 2 hours already. I installed a mouse zoom and fall script, so I upgraded my stream to my whole full. Nice. You know who does that? Dino Dini Nogi. He's a developer from when I was a child. He uses that mouse follow and the zoom thing. That's pretty cool. But yes, so I really didn't think that through. Like, hey, I stream first thing in the morning. Let's put a camera on myself. When you have no, I'm not going to go and brush my hair and have a shave and whatnot before I stream. So, but yeah. So, thank you very much for correcting me on the audio, though. I appreciate that. I'm glad you showed up. Okay, so I need to find how to add the right permission, right? Grant create table, grant. I know there's some combinations of strings you can use. There's all sorts of things you can use here. I just gotta grant permission on object, right? So grant create database to Saga. Grant drop database. Does not like drop. Been let down. How can I trust you again, Google Bard? ChatGPT, can you do any better? How do I script a user and grant permissions to be able to create and drop databases and create and grant permissions to user? So this is a tricky balance, and it's one that I want to make sure that I have. Defaults to MySQL, awesome. Okay, how do you do this on MySQL, on MS SQL? But I want to get the right balance because again, I want to demonstrate it working. So, Mr. Anhorn, you haven't been here in a few days, so I have done quite a lot in the last couple of days in terms of learning. And what I'm doing today is trying to prepare the supporting components of this thing I've done. So what I did last week was I came across the Saga problem, right, where I wanted to generate a Saga, and that Saga would chain together notifications so that when I received the notification, I've been getting ready for a new fridge. I was dropped in at the very end. Nice. No worries. New fridge. Ugh, we need that as well. But it's Christmas. Awesome. So, yeah. So basically, what I wanted to do is I wanted to create a saga, right? And whether it be right or wrong, I wanted to do it so that in my tenant management, I could create this saga and say, okay, the tenant registration saga, it started by these two events and it handles this event. And it's not finished yet. I'm still working on it, but ultimately, all this should be is this, right? It should track the state, and then eventually we'll have the hey and on complete notify, right? Which will then trigger another Saga message out of this. I see that. I'll probably take a closer look. I need something like that. Right now, all my events just changed to the next. Yeah, so the goal of this was to try and make sure that I had, a bit of single responsibility in here, that these are not tied to that behavior. These do their thing, and that's all they do. So what I ended up doing, I don't know if you saw this piece, was I used code generators because I didn't want to write this stuff time and time again, right? So fetch Saga if it exists by orchestration ID, and it pulls it all together and then handles that message and then saves the Saga. Are you going to look at robots? That is one thing I need to clean up. Past steps. Possible. I mean, rollbacks would be needed if the Saga failed, yeah. So, yeah, well, I'll have to, right? Right now, what I'm trying to do is find those use cases, right? So I'm developing this early enough that I can evolve it as I go, right? And it's always, and I did, do a thing. I put it up here. It is in the open repository, in the public. So I MIT licensed it because it's linked off Mediator, which is also MIT licensed. And also I can't do that part, but it makes it easier if you do a release. Awesome. But it is in NuGet as well. So I spent Saturdays. Was it Saturday? Yes, it was Saturday stream. I spent Saturday stream publishing these packages to NuGet, and I've got some modifications to make to the script. But yeah, that's, and I keep looking over there because the chat's over there, but obviously the camera's there, so it's going to look weird. Yeah, so yeah, but in the past month, I've been developing a long time. I've never produced NuGet packages to NuGet, and I've never had a PR to a public repository accepted that I can remember. So, and in the past month, I've done both of those things. So, I'm evolving. Been a few years. So yeah, there you go. That's the mediator.sagas library. That is available. So now I've just got to learn how to grant drop any database, grant create any database. So this is what ChatGPT thinks I should do. Cool, it's a nice feeling. I'll push something on to pull him to fix their GitHub action. Nice. That's a more productive one. I updated the Couchbase example code to .NET 8, but they merged it. Okay, so let's go over here on Saga admin user. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to create the supporting components. So this is going to, I bet that doesn't work. I'm going to have to put this at the top of the script so that anybody who pulls this down and wants to run the integration test can do so. You just kind of put this in as the user, and then everything else should work from it. That's the goal. Well, it just stopped multiple deployment messages on the PR message fail. Then they changed and broke. I think, honestly, I do believe that this sort of stuff, like doing the CI/CD stuff, stuff, is kind of push and pull, right? There's a lot of tinkering, a lot of trying. You're going to do things. You're going to keep running the process, and it becomes very fragile because there's no validation steps. There's no what GitHub changing API. Nice. But it's hard to do because it keeps changing, right? So like with this, I've created the release of NuGet package, right? And what happens is it fires the script for once for every package I've got, but each one builds all the packages. So what happens is the first one succeeds, right? Runs all the unit tests. It actually does the code generation and runs the unit tests. I was kind of happy with that it runs them, right? So I can make that an actual build step as well now, or deploy step. And it creates all three packages and publishes all three packages. But then it comes along for the other two and tries to do it again. So I've got some tweaks to make there, but right now it works, and ultimately I'll aim to get that to say true. Good morning, Amal. How are you doing? Yes, kind of. I'm hiding behind my own logo because the YouTube stream embeds it. But yeah, I decided to put the camera up and see if it helped with a little bit more of a personal feel on the stream. So anyway, the Saga stuff is there. It does work. It generates the classes, right? So if I go into dependencies and I go into .NET 8 source generators, there's my Saga code. So it actually does the handlers, which I was super proud of getting done. If I'm honest, I was really chuffed with being able to get this working. I can definitely see the power in these source generators. I learned how to debug in the source generators. I use templating, so I use Scriven as the templating piece. There's a lot of learning there. And partially why I bought the camera is I do want to make some videos of some of this stuff, because I think in a 2.5 hour stream, a lot of the actual learning pieces are lost. So I kind of do want to get more into making a few videos out of this stuff. Okay, so this doesn't work. How do I do it properly? Grant drop database SQL Server. Everyone have a good weekend? And Amal, I see you appear in the stream all the time, which I really appreciate. By the way, I really love the fact that getting the YouTube stream up allowed you to watch in real time. What projects are you working on? You don't often talk. I know you have posted in Discord sometimes, and I don't think we've been able to help you as much as I would have liked. But good to see your face as well. It's early morning, and you are already coding. Impressed. Good morning, Sorav. How are you doing? Yes. Well, this is kind of my most productive window of time in the day right now, and a good time to stream. So, how do I do it? Drop database, grant control on database to Joe Dev. I mean, I don't need it to. I need it to create a database because I want it to do this automatically. I don't need that. Grant drop database to. Fridge mostly. Yeah. Yeah, clearing out all the space for a fridge, getting the old fridge out, or getting everything emptied out of the fridge, and then you find cleaning that you didn't think you had to do. Yeah. It's more involved than just swapping them out. If you're doing it right, I suppose. So Yeah, I think I've definitely learned a lot over the last couple of days. In so much that I think that creating some content, um, don't think I'm going to get into shorts or anything like that, but creating a few videos to help describe this. And what this has made me realize as well is I need to set up a green screen so I can, because this is actually my real backdrop. The games are, you can just see them over my shoulders a little bit, but I need to get the green screen sorted out. Okay, how do I do it? I've done this so many times. SQL Server grant drop database. Grant. I could go with all, right? I could give them basically admin access, but I don't want to do that. I want to make it not look like I'm trying to create some crazy permissions problem, because again, I'm going to put this into NuGet packages, right? Um, or I'm going to put this up in GitHub. This particular piece, this initialization script will be used by the user to allow this script to do what it needs to do, right? So it needs to drop and create every time. Then it needs to create the login if it doesn't exist, and create the user. And then the rest will be taken over by the SQL Server Saga persistence, right? So the aim is this will actually create its own table. So this integration test is aimed at establishing that it can do that. When it can do that, I know that you can just bring down the package and it will create the database. I need this and I don't want to go ahead without it, because the best test of something like this is the first time you do it, right? The first time you include the NuGet package, the first time it actually tries to execute is going to be the best test, because everything after that, once you're tinkering with stuff, you don't know 100% that you haven't changed the system in a way that, so you have to start with a fresh system again, which with a dev system, you rarely get. So it'll be a long time before I get around to this problem again. So I want to try and give myself the best possible chance of having it work. So I could move on. I could proceed with what I'm doing. I can create this table structure and I have verified it will write to the table structure, right? But I don't want to do it until I have that. So I need to learn how to grant. Now the user I'm running this as is grant permissions on to principal, right? SQL Server grant. Let's take a look at using this grant statement. First, create the database. I want to be able to do the drop and create, because I want to be able to reproduce this process and validate that it's fresh every time. That's why. So that's why I'm trying to grant drop on this user. Does this give me any grant? Alter any database to Saga admin user. Go. You can grant it on the login of the user. Saga login. Cannot find. Go. Go. Already exists. That worked. Cannot find the login. So that gets granted on the login? Ah. So yes, I could create the database beforehand, but I don't want to. Okay. So this is Saga admin login, right? And master's going to have a user now, Saga admin user. Okay. So I need Saga admin. No, I need that password. Saga admin user. Right. I'm not connecting to a database with this initialization. Right. I'm connecting to a the server, and as I am added to the master schema, I should now have permissions to create this database the way I need it to, and then drop it as well. So I should be able to run this. Oh, I need to be able to grant create. Now I don't trust the fact that what this told me, right? So this told me I should be able to create the user, grant select on all tables, right? I want more than how do. Actually, let's see if this grant create user. Let's see if it offers that. Grant create. No. Grant create. Grant alter any user to Saga admin login. Oh, that's a see. I'm saying I want to be secure, but this is a pretty much terrible script, right? Because I'm basically giving this user the free reign of the system. But again, this is not the user that I'm going to ultimately use. This is for dev only, right? The script in here is what's going to do that, and I'm going to limit those restrictions. So this user will be the example user for the actual library, right? So, and as always, if there's any questions, if you want me to kind of stop, if you think I'm doing something wrong and you want to correct me, please join in. I am not a SQL Server admin. This is not my comfort zone. So how do I grant creating a user and login on SQL Server to a user? Create a login, grant create login to, there you go, grant create user. That kind of makes sense. Grant create login to Saga admin login, go, grant create user to Saga admin login, go. Let's see if it works. Cannot find. So cannot find Saga admin login. Ah, okay, so you need it on the database. Okay, that's fine. So that part worked, right? Yes, that part worked. Because a user is at database level, right? A login is at the server level. Okay, so now I have my main user and my Sagas user, my actual integration test user, should have, this should have created been created by this initial database script. So create, use integration tests Create user integration test from integration test. There you go. That's kind of what I want to do. Let's see if it runs. Login failed for the Saga admin user. Login failed for Saga admin user. So Saga admin login with password. Create user Saga admin user from login. Do I have to use login there then? Missing end comment mark. So I obviously have a database there, right? I want to get rid of that database. That's step number one. Is created it, and it actually did create it through the script initially in the first version. So why is that? Let's make sure that's not even a problem. Let's add a readme, readme.md. Worry about that later. I just need to save it somewhere, right? Let's run that and see if it errors now. Server principal integration test already exists. Awesome. By name equals integration test. That should be integration test as well. That should not ever be anything but. Okay, if not exists, check if a login exists SQL Server script. Database principles. Where if not exists, select star from. I mean, I could do the drop, but I don't really care to. Let's just see if it runs, because this should run every time, right? That's the point. It should run and not have an issue. The server principal already exists. Now, is that because so? Is that because of that, right? Where the server principals, and then, well, if I've dropped the, so let's try the drop. Go. If exists, drop login integration test. Go. Oh, I can't do it that way. That's why. Cannot do that. That I can do. And that can. What I'm doing is I'm splitting on go. So each one should be atomic. Server principal already exists. try and run it. So if in doubt, run it in here. It worked perfectly. Joy. Oh, but I'm an admin running this user. I'm not the same user. So the script is fine. My permissions are wrong. Either way, okay, so that's fine. Let's comment that out for it right a second. So the purpose of this is actually to see if I can actually save a saga, right? So if I run now, this should get to the persistence piece and try and save a saga, and it will probably crash, right? Invalid object name sagas, because the table doesn't exist, right? Which is my entire problem is the fact that it doesn't create the table. So if I go back here, so what I've tried, and I don't want to use migrations because again, migrations create tables. Migrations have then changed the schema beyond this one table, right? So I think it's okay to allow the insert of a single table into an existing schema if that user chooses that. But if I create other tables, like I create supporting tables, then I might overlap with what they expect. So I want to start with, okay, can I make it create the table the way I need it first? I could create a separate database. I could script it out, right? But it would be nice if this was just kind of a easy process of, okay, set it up, make sure it's got a database to connect to, document the fact that it actually will create a table, obviously, but then it just plug and play as best as possible, right? So what I have tried is I have tried in the context using database.insert created, right? But that doesn't work. Although I didn't try one other thing, models, table, sagas. Now that's not exactly ideal because it's now hard coded, but let's figure it out. Maybe I just need to set the configuration for it. I don't know. Oh, that is something different. Create table permission denied. So that was enough. Okay. So can I create Saga Saga configuration? That is an I configuration I entity type configuration Saga. Okay, so does this get this? Builder dot to table configuration sagas table name. I wonder if that works. Builder dot has key, K goes to K. This kind of makes sense that I should do this. Now I know this isn't going to work, right? But what this means is now I can get rid of the attribute, so I don't have any component models there. I kind of prefer that because there's different database sets use different modeling language. I don't like using the attributes. I know that I'm never going to do it, but then on model creating, Yeah, that'll do. I'm not under the illusion this will pass, by the way. I do know that it'll fail, but I want to see if I get to configuration. Does dependency injection work? Huh. It didn't hit my breakpoint at all. Let's go back to our README. No, I need this piece to do grant grant select update insert. Yeah. Hi Delta, how you doing? Wasn't that I mean, it was expensive, but it wasn't that expensive. I figured it was a worthwhile investment if I want to continue doing this and commit to it. So yes. Yeah, it was on the so all in. I think the entire kit with the 4K, the cam link. I could have used another capture card. I decided to use the cam link to give that a try because there's software for it, etc. And with a camera and a whole lot of equipment, lens filters and all sorts, which I haven't even tinkered with yet, it was like $700. Finally got that blog article to where I wanted. Nice. Popped out 10 slide present. Sweet. So you're almost ready to present to your colleagues. Create table on schema DBO. Go. Basically reads, we should do testing. I know testing. Let's do testing. As a manager, how much do you ask for something like testing? Next steps. I don't know if I suggest 10 things or 2. Was that a question directly to me, or was that like a continued thought? As a manager, how much do you ask for something like testing? In terms of, you know, in what respect? Like, what do I expect of testing? What do I? There's a bunch of things they could do. Write unit tests, coding dojos, weekly mobbing, pairing, etc. I mean, honestly, if you're introducing unit testing to the organization and you haven't done it globally, right? First, you've got to get over people's fears of it, right? The best way of doing that is a bit of pairing with some good demonstrations, right? Sitting down with existing code and trying to add some unit tests in there and building up people's confidence in the fact that it works. You're not going to be able to say, you can't mandate, right? Here's unit testing. Does everyone agree we should do it? Because most people say, yeah, we should definitely do it. Well, that'll definitely help us, right? Now let's do it, right? You can't go from 0 to 100, right? So some pairing on existing projects with people who understand what unit testing is will be valuable. And build that confidence in that skill set up a little bit. Review often. Yeah. You want a plan of action, right? You do want to make sure that you say, here's how we're going to introduce unit testing, right? When we're starting a new story, right? If there's much discussion about a story, maybe you identify, okay, we expect this to be unit tested. Let's try and do that. So X person will pair on that for a little while and get some unit tests in place. I would start with not doing TDD. I would start with doing tests. So let the story be written and then apply the tests. But discuss how you might write the story accurately. Because if you start with test-driven development, it's a lot scarier than starting with unit testing after the fact, right? But you don't want to build that discipline, right? That's the problem, right? You don't want to build a discipline of, okay, I wrote tests, but you wrote them all after the fact. So your goal, your long-term goal is test-driven development. I don't think I even pitch TDD. I just say, I can TDD. If you want more, ask me. I think you need to, if you want to propose that you do it as a group, as an organization, you need to support it, right? You need to be prepared to say, and this is going to be the scary part, right? You need to be prepared to say, I'm the expert here, right? And it will truly test your abilities. Because if you start with, yeah, I kind of do it a little bit on the side, and I think it's a good idea, then you won't gain the confidence of anybody else. You have to go in there with, this is an awesome idea. Here's how we're writing it tests. Be opinionated. Be confident in presenting what you're presenting as a good solution. Start with tests after the fact. Don't start with test driven. Build them into the existing code bit by bit. Build a loyal fan base. There's a phrase about turning customers into raving fans or something like that, and I can't remember who it's from, or who asked for it, but that's really what you want. You want your teammates to become like, the most satisfying point you'll get is when you almost actually see the light bulb appear above someone's head, right? It's like that moment where the idea of, oh, that's really powerful, I can use that. It's a very satisfying feeling, but you've got to be confident here, right? You don't obviously pretend you know everything, right? If watching me for any number of years has taught you anything, is that the moment I start pretending I know something, then I'm proven quickly wrong. So I've got to make sure that I also show that vulnerability of, I don't know how to do that, let's figure it out, right? I give my 5 years of background in TDD to show that I know it. But you don't know it, you've practiced it. And you'll continue to practice it, right? You know how to go about it, but you'll continue to practice it. It's funny, we're doing the karate stuff. The parallels with what we do in karate, or martial arts in general, they work for a reason. There's a reason I do kata in karate, and I can do kata in programming, because it's that practice, that repetition, that ability to use the skill. Because any skill you build in software development, because there's that much to learn, you'll quickly forget if you don't use it. You've done this with 5 years with mentorship, you've learned from other people. How do you start with a beginner? One punch at a time, right? You teach the basics, you build upon the basics, and then what you do is you start introducing the kata. And what the kata does, and if you're not looking for it, you don't see it, but the kata uses the moves you've been doing, right? And it just helps you repeat them. So I'm punching, I'm kicking, I'm moving, I'm flowing, I'm defending, I'm attacking, right? It's building up that ability bit by bit by bit by bit. So that's what I'm saying. You should start with unless you've got a lot prepared, I would say a class is not what you want to go for. You don't want to go for one massive, here's how this works, because you won't be able to get those light bulb moments very quickly, right? If you say, hey, here's how I propose we go about it. I propose we take some stories. For each story, we sit and we have a quick discussion on, do we think we could actually put some unit tests in this code? And obviously you're the expert, so you become the person who says, I think we could, right? So then you might let the code be written the way it would be written, or you could pair with that person. I think pairing is a common part of your process as well, so it might not be bad to introduce testing, but I wouldn't start with test driven. I'd start with, here's the code we're going to write, now let's add some tests. And then as you grow, that moment comes of, they understand what it is they're looking at, and they realize, oh, this is useful, I can see how that introduced a bug, or now we caught it with a test, there we go, right? And then you can introduce test driven over time, because what you can say is, now let's think about, okay, I need to write this, so here's what I'm looking for as a test. Now, no, don't run ahead of yourself, don't assume you need all these things, build them up bit by bit by bit. So I would do it that way. I would do it pairing. I would build the confidence, get people on board with the idea, because what will happen is if you get individuals working on it and doing it, they can make it a part of their daily routine, and they can help share that knowledge and reinforce that as they pair with others. A group is kind of at the point where they are almost doing TDD, or at least the tests are written properly. Right. And yeah. Well, properly again. That's a word we often use in software development. You might look at my software and say it's not written properly, right? Because I mean, full well, I don't try and look at an architecture and follow it, right? I don't look at how other people write unit tests and say, yeah, I have to write it that way. I'm pragmatic about what I do. Right? They set up the mob in a manner where we are writing tests on production code that's already written, and I can see how things work based on the tests, which is usually okay. I don't fully understand the implementations. It's hardware magic. You don't have to understand everything, right? So, what was I going to do? I was going to do this. Grant. I need that to appear in this script, yes. But I need to run it to test to see if it actually runs it, yes. Grant. Where did I pull that from? Did I pull it from over here? No. I need to be able to allow this user to allow create table, select, insert, update, delete the user, SQL Server. I'll do it all in caps. It's just more fun that way. Okay, Dota, thank you very much. Hopefully the conversation was at least some way helpful. Anyhow, you gave me some stuff to think about. I have to discuss it with the managers. Yes. Good. Yeah, I mean, be prepared. You know, it's a fun time, but it's going to be challenging. Grant, select, update, insert on. Grant, allow, create tables. I could cheat. I could go into the user and set the privileges. Grant create table. Grant create table to integration test. Go. Grant select. Update, insert, delete. Actually, I suppose that is true. I don't need to worry about the schema because there you go. So again, I'm doing this because I want to validate that the specified schema name DBO either does not exist, you do not have permission to use it. What? What is it? Default schema? Where did I say DBO anything? Okay. Integration test. Grant all on schema DBO to integration test. Go. All permission has been deprecated and is not available. Okay. So where did I grant it previously? That's the next question. The specified schema in DBO either does not exist or you don't have permission to use it. I'm not creating a schema. Schemas are not something I've played with a lot. Grant select on schema to user. Grant insert, delete, alter, execute, control. Grant create table. There's actually SP. No, that's just that one. Add login. That's a store procedure. That's not what I'm thinking about. I thought there was a store procedure to do something like this. I mean, the benefit of this is all a Docker image, right? A Docker container. So the very worst, I can tear it down and start again. That doesn't worry me. I just want to know what I'm doing wrong here. So that should go in there. Why is it complaining about DBO though? That's the challenge. Unable to resolve schema DBO, that's fine, because that's just because that's there. Create user, grant create table. Does that need to be there? Incorrect syntax near. Right, so you can't limit creation of a table to a schema. Right, so that's nonsensical. Select, update, insert, delete on schema DBO. Execute shouldn't matter because I'm not using any store procs. On schema DBO to integration test, okay. SQL management is not fun. Okay. Where did you actually get to? So you got to, it's erroring here, right? It's erroring trying to, either does not exist or you do not have permission to use it. Integration test. So I have, let's do this. Let's drop the database. That did not work. Pretty sure. Close all tabs. Drop. Actually, let's try this. Server principles. Drop. Integration test. Drop. Integration test. Does not exist or you don't have permissions. Drop. How can I not have permissions? I'm an admin. I'm the DBA of the database. Refresh. Drop. Invalid object name. Ah. It dropped it. Okay, that's a step forward. Now, drop. Incorrect syntax. Drop. Does not exist. You do not have permission to drop it. So I've created users I can't delete, which is stunning. It's 8:12. Okay, so let's just let's see if this even works. Login failed for Saga admin login. Okay, so it created the login. So the login had deleted, the user had not deleted. Okay, that's fine. So again, I think it's the cascading part, right? That's the problem. It's I've got pieces in place to, if I drop that, then I drop the principal. Well, that's interesting. Drop login Saga admin login. Go drop user Saga admin user go. Does not exist. Does not exist. Okay, let's try once more. There we go. I'll worry about the duplicate, whether that's a side effect or an artifact of data grip or not later. Okay, so we have the database established. Oh, we have that piece established. So this piece, hopefully, would create the database. Hi, Rockstone. How are you doing? Cannot find the user integration test. That's interesting. So it's created the database. Let's create that. Okay. This is SQL Server. This is Microsoft SQL Server that I'm using. This tool is JetBrains Data Grip. Okay, so let's come out of the initialize again. So what was it struggling with? Create login. So did my login exist? Okay, let's see. Create table permission denied. That's because the user doesn't exist. No. I'm getting further forward, but this is going to be challenging. I know I bet I know I messed up before. I bet I didn't do that. Let's see. No, come on. The specified schema name DBO either does not exist or you do not have permission to use it. So we are doing some. So what I'm trying to do is actually try and get the integration test running for my code generation from last week. And it is not going as well as I would like. Because what I want to do is be able to run this program and have it generate the database. The problem is I don't have... I want to verify if I can actually pull the table name that I'm going to create from my configuration, which would allow me to then set that table name in the schema. So if this is null, the idea would be this would be Sagas, right? So it would default to Sagas, but you can override it. The challenge is, I suppose the challenge here as well, I've got to migrate this as well. So I probably... In practicality, if I was to continue using this method, I would create it the first time, but then subsequent releases of the software wouldn't work. Because if I change the table structure, because I know there's a change coming, but I'm holding off on it for this reason, right? I want to keep testing the code I'm writing. I want to keep validating the use cases. And the only way I'm going to do that is if I actually come across them and then have to adapt. And it's why I'm willing to do so much of this stuff now, because once I've got these pieces in place, these foundational components, I should be able to proceed with building the actual software and not get stuck on the engineering challenges such as, okay, I want to represent this. How do I do it? Right? I shouldn't hit as many of them later on. Once I've prototyped out the components. So this is good if it works, but I still do need to do a migration, right? So the idea of putting this in the same schema I shouldn't do it. I should make it a separate piece, or it should be independent, because you know, I don't like this idea. If I do migrations, then migrations provide me the ability to update this software in the future and provide a you know, if I add the types or I add extra information to the Sagas table, the migration lets me do that. I just don't like the idea of doing it, but I think it's the only path. Yeah, I gotta do it. I don't like the idea, but I gotta do it. Here we go. Fun with migrations. .NET EF migrations. Generate. I'm gonna find out I don't have the tools. .NET EF migrations add initial create. .NET EF migrations add initial create. .NET Is there a way of doing this through .NET yet? .NET command line. .NET tool. .NET tool. Install global. .NET EF. .NET EF migrations. Add initial create. project. TBD develop dot mediator dot sagas dot SQL Server. No, it was right. Project source TBD develop dot mediator sagas dot SQL Server. Your starter project doesn't reference entity framework core design. Is that my starter project? I think it is because it's standalone. Not that I like that idea. Hey Deflux, how you doing? Yes. I decided to risk it anyway and come on stream with just got out of bed face. Unable to create DB content of type there. Because it's not going to pull the table, is it? No, it shouldn't matter. Although I bet that is causing it. Let's see if that changes the behavior. Nope. .NET EF core migrations. But I don't have a start project. Do I? I'm going to put that back and I'm going to use this as my starter project. Don't know why that would matter, but Sagas table name is Sagas. But that won't matter. Startup project source TBD develop dot mediator. No. SQL Server. Where did I put this one? Please tell me I put it in tests. I likely didn't. Projects, mediator, sagas. No, I just stuck it right in the root. No, as server.integration tests. Okay, so this one doesn't need core design, which I'm happy with. That's okay. Manage NuGet packages on this one. That I'm okay with. I'm able to create a DB context of type. Oh, I want to test something. Sagas beta. I want to see that it says create table Sagas beta. If it does, just using the type. Specified schema name, DBO either does not exist or you do not have permission to use it. I should do it with SQLite. Honestly, so the reason I'm starting with SQL Server is because I can demonstrate that in theory. I can demonstrate that, put that into the package, but then I can add SQLite or couch-based versions of these sagas to prove out the idea that you could use this. You can store wherever the sagas wherever you like, because the saga is nothing more than a table that has need to store the state of the actual saga itself. Right, so it's just a way to recall that current data. So yeah, that's that is as by SQL Server. I'm just trying to think about why this isn't actually functioning. So this does nothing right now, right? That's not my big concern, right? It would be nice to be able to do that because then it's more flexible. You can control the actual creation. But why do I get that error message about the specified schema name either does not exist, so you don't have permission to use it? I need this user to be able to do it. The particular user belongs to the DB execute role. The sprocs are given the execute permission for DB execute role. You can use the below script to see a list of sprocs. Thank you for the reply, but yes, the particular user. If user grant execute on grant execute. Is it execute? Is that all I'm missing? I doubt it. Execute. Let's try. Nope. Specify schema name. DBO does not exist. Okay. I'm giving in. I'm giving in. I'm going to see if I modify this login, right? That's got grant connect. That's got nothing. And that's got nothing, right? I do not have permission to do not have permission. So I've got a bit of a mess of a database, is what's happening. So let's go back to here. Let's do this. Do this. Do this. Do this. And do this. Okay. Go here. Again, right now I'm like, I want to make progress. I don't care about. Okay. Okay, so I should be able to modify this connection string, right? This is testing now, right? So I should only have one of them users, and I should only have the most full permissions, right? Because if I'm picking up that other user, that doesn't have permissions. So let's see if this does anything. Don't understand why. The specified schema name, DBO, either does not exist or you do not have permission to use it. Is it this? Grant permissions. You need to give it a schema to database over schema, SQL Server. My thought is that I'm not giving it the right level of access to get to that schema to be able to do what it needs to do. So, object. So You can grant schema permissions that are effective for everything existing and everything that will exist in that schema. That's what I'm doing. Further to that, if you want to deny permissions on a certain object. So let me have a look. Let's see if it actually... So there's my integration testing user. If I modify the login, I didn't get grant. Right? That grant did nothing. So that's my problem. So if I... Let's just do this manually. At the DBO. No, that's the login. That's the server principal. I want this version of it, right? I want database principles. This is the one I want. Modify role. So connect and create table were the only permissions I actually got there. On this one, on DBO, grant, delete, execute, insert, select, update. On the database, connect, create table, which is fine. Delete, execute, insert, select, update. Okay, so let's do this. Let's try that. Now let's modify that role. Integration test. Connect and create table. To remove the DBO. No, it never had that, did it? Grant on integration integration testing. On the database. See, that's... No. That doesn't like that. That's the right way. Alter user. That's not the right way. Because again, I should be able to go in here and see those grants, right? So if I go DBO here, no, that's not. Modify role, grants. That's a user though. That's not. Have I created a user called DBO by accident? No. Because this isn't taking. That's the problem, right? The problem is that I'm not actually able to modify this role in a meaningful way. Default schema is DBO. That's fine. Type SQL user. Right, but I should be able to do then. I should be able to do that. Right. That works. It doesn't error, but it doesn't go in here because I can now. If I do create, let's create table. Execute. Insert. Select. Update. Delete. There you go. On database. Integration tests. There you go. That should do better. Let's try. Come on. Grant, connect, create table, delete, execute. Like how it's put it on DBO though, because it knows these permissions are DBO level. But my user has been created in the DBO schema. Okay, either way, that's... I don't want to lose track of that part. Right. How do I do this one? Edit. Okay, Control Shift U. Create user. Create user. Give permissions to schema SQL Server. Grant schema permissions. With grant option. That might help. No, because... So... That's okay if the user that I'm using to initialize the database, and maybe that's the problem. Maybe that's the actual issue, is this is not configured correctly to grant as I do it, but that shouldn't matter now because I've granted the permissions. So I do need to be able to do that. On schema specifies the schema which permission the scope qualifier is required. Database principal, database user role, or application role. Let's do one more change here. So let's differentiate between user and role. So right now I create a user from the login, right? So integration test login, right? That's the user. I should grant that to the user. That should not be the login, I don't believe. Drop login. Drop user integration test user integration test. Drop login integration test login. Is currently in use. Not from there, it's not. This is so much fun. So again, as always, if you're in here and you are wondering what the heck I'm doing, if you have any interest in what I'm doing, if you have any opinions on what I'm doing, you may share them. I don't really care. Well, I care. I want to answer questions. What I mean is I'm not going to get distracted. I'm not trying to be productive in the stream. What I'm trying to do is make sure that I am learning as I go. Okay, so that all worked. So what we should do now is go here and change this piece to be integration test login, right? Yeah, I do care. What I mean is, I do not need to be productive. If people have questions, then I am more than happy to answer. Oh, hold on. Should be the user, shouldn't it? I'm logging in as the login, not the user. That's going to time out. However, that is the change. By separating the login from the user, I need to log in as the user to the database, right? The login is kind of the top level server based piece. Then you have the user at the actual individual component piece of SQL Server, right? So the user is the one I'm assigning the permissions to, not the login. So with naming them the same thing, which normally I don't have an issue with, but naming them differently, I'm seeing the difference, right? Because the login did not have permission on that schema. That was correct. The problem is here it's hanging. It's going to time out. I don't know why, because the generate should not need the database. I hate that this does need the database. Login failed for integration test. Okay. So that's actually timing out because the integration test user can't get in. Allow login for user SQL Server. Script. Create login. Create user for login. Use alter role. DB data reader, DB data writer. Thank you for the look, Deflux. Appreciate it. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe I'm not allowing grant connect. Nope. Allow a user to log in with connection string. Script SQL Server. So the issue I have now is that the user is the one that has the permissions, not the login. But would it take the map login? Because again, if I change that out, right? If I change that to the actual test login, nope, it's going to error. Create table permission denied. To think the permission on the login, the login does not have the permission to do that. Create user integration test from login. And I grant the permissions on the integration test user, not the login. This will all be worth it. I will keep telling myself that. It will all be worth it because I will understand a little bit more about how to script this. I could do this through the tooling. I'm pretty confident I've done it multiple times in the tooling that I could figure this out quickly in the tooling. It's not something I do every day. It's not something I do when providing user ID in connection string. Is that the login or the user? SQL Server.net. No, that's just someone getting that wrong. That question is not going to get me now. So not the struggle that I wanted to have on a stream today, right? I wanted to be able to get through this because, again, this saga in theory works. Well, no, it does work. It does record. But again, the purpose of this entire thing is to disconnect some behavior from or rather join several events together to perform a new behavior, right? Ultimately, this will have I publish on complete or something like that. I'm kind of using uh, the I. I'm leading into the I. Modern practices seem to discourage using the I for an interface. I kind of like it still. I think I'm going to continue to use it because I don't want to have to question whether it is an interface or a class. Now, because you can only have single class inheritance in C#, everything after the first one is 100% guaranteed an interface if it compiles, right? But I don't know if I want to I don't know if I like that, right? So I don't always use like this I am started by I handle, etc. I don't always use it that way, but it kind of works for these. So these will do these will do what I need. So I do believe that these are the correct path. I just got to figure out this persistence component because it's going to be something that I want the NuGet package to be downloadable and either prepare a script or tell you how to install it quickly, but at least allow it to be, my measure of a good library is, can I download it and be using it within 5 minutes? And if I can, then that's a really awesome library. And if I obviously need it, but it is a good measure of ease of use. So right now, this would take you ages to configure. You'd have to know how to go set your database up and everything like that. I want to take that out, realizing that I can't take it out entirely. Right, I have to do something. But yeah. Now, is there a login? Let's blah, blah 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 blah. Let's use the fact that the tools give us some level of integration test. Another one on. I keep hitting F5. I don't want to hit F5. I want to bring up this. That's going to time out again. Although authenticate should. Difference between login and user in SQL Server. A login grants the principal entry onto the server. A user grants a login entry into the single database. One login can be associated with many users. Each of the above objects can have permissions granted to edit its own level. See the following articles. Right. So it should map. So it should be the login that does it, right? Because there can only be one user per database mapped to a login. So when the login goes to the database, it's going to use the user. So if that's login, integration test login, right? And modify Oh, that doesn't have create. Doesn't have create database. Oh, of course it doesn't, because I didn't grant create database. Grant create database to integrate create table on database integration test to integration test. Go. Try that now. Oh, come on. Why? This is all just to create scripts, by the way. This is just to create actual files. Not even, it needs a database to actually do this. Yeah, it doesn't matter because it's going to create scripts. The specified schema does not exist to give permission to use it. DB migration, entity framework. So most people are going to have looked at this in this context, right? Go to migrations and below this code fix work for me. Try running enable migrations, then run add migration. Joy. Okay, well, I'm going to tinker more with this off stream. I'm going to get an answer and I'm going to figure out how to actually make this work because I don't want to, I'm not going to spend another stream doing this, right? So tomorrow I'm going to come back and I'm going to have this done. That's my commitment. I'm going to have this done so that this is building and actually storing the sagas. Then I can demonstrate the sagas in here and we'll work on adding that completed status, which is the next step, right? So the entire goal of the last couple of streams has been getting these sagas implemented. So if you're new to the stream, if you haven't spent some time, the videos are all up on YouTube if you want to briefly look through them. This library is available on my GitHub, which is linked in my profile below the stream. And the idea is that these sagas kind of can join these events and then we'll publish an event to say, yep, this is done now. I can then consume that event and do something with it, right? So a tenant is ready, it will be published through Mediator, and then I can do with what I need off that. So that will be the next step. That is my goal for tomorrow. But yeah, any questions, any thoughts, concerns, etc. You know, more than welcome to discuss them with me. I do love discussing this stuff, and I would like to think that this is at least useful or educational to some people. And again, now I've got the camera set up and stuff, I will probably make some shorter content that is just focusing on some of these pieces once I've refined them. I'll probably make a video on actually using the sagas specifically to see if there's any feedback as people find those videos. You know, this isn't a pattern I found. I haven't found people doing this, which doesn't always mean that it's wrong. It just means that people haven't thought to do it in this way yet. So maybe it's something new and useful. Maybe it's something that's completely out of design for modern systems. But I will learn. So thank you very much for joining me. I put a link to the Discord in the chat if anyone wants to join the Discord and converse. And I will be back tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rockstone. I appreciate it. Take care.